What's going on, everyone? The slingshot is in play, and the last time this happened, the stock market rose 10% the following quarter. We're going to be covering what this means for the stock market right now, some of the most in-play stocks, and why tomorrow will be the biggest day of the week. We have some great charts and info today, so stick with us to the end. But besides that, Tom, let's get right to it.
Yeah, the SPY was pretty awesome today as it made brand new all-time highs. So let's go. I better see some celebrations in the comments for how good the SPY performed today. Pretty much from open all the way to close, we saw a lot of consistent price action and very good movement to the upside. And there were a lot of stocks fueling this rally. Apple had a really good move today. Nvidia was up in the green by quite a bit. So we had a lot of the bigger tech stocks here really up in the green. Mike, whenever you look at the SPY, everybody's like, okay, the SPYs really came back here in the short term. Can it keep going forward here? I personally think that it can. And, there's some really good data out there showing that on the Q3 return, after we see a negative Q1 and then a Q2 greater than 10%, which has not happened since 2020, we actually see a nice pop on the Q3 return where we see that 10% number. And that is a huge number there for one quarter, Mike. I will say that is going to be a great move. If you thought that Q2 had a pretty good move so far, well, Q3 is set to also be pretty good, at least judging by this data.
Yeah, and as we know, 2025 has been crazy in multiple different ways, and basically what we're seeing in the stock market right here is pretty rare. Like Tom said, we actually haven't seen a slingshot style situation like this since 2020, and when you look at other data, there's only been a few instances of this actually happening since 1956 to be exact. And what I do really like to see is that out of every single one of those instances, the market did have a positive Q3, so this has a 100% track record, which is nice to see. And personally, what I value more than anything else is that when we look at the average return of 10.7%, it is much, much greater than the average return of 0.7% when you're just looking at just any general situation in the market. So basically what this is telling us is that situations like this are historically meaningful.
Definitely. And whenever I start to think about, okay, what can we do going forward here with this data, it definitely gives me more of a bullish mindset, or we'll say a bullish tendency with the overall market. And going back to the SPY just a little bit, it's so good to see it holding up above 620. If we go out on a daily chart, we kind of turn off the drawings here, we can see that it's actually extending up very well. And the last time that SPY, I would say, extended up from a V-shaped recovery like this was following COVID. And we can see that following COVID, there was definitely quite the run out of the S&P 500 pretty much for one whole year between 2021 and 2022. I'm not saying that has to happen again, but it's definitely good to see the SPY getting this good extension going, and I think that it's definitely something that a lot of traders are very happy with here. And the S&P 500 is also on the cusp of its 7th greatest breakout since 1990. That just goes to show you how strong I would say that this overall trend has been. We can see, looking at the chart here, there has been 22 stocks in the S&P 500 at all-time highs as of now, or at least as of June 26, 2025, and 83 stocks in the S&P 500 are currently within 5% of their all-time highs. So if we keep seeing this uptrend continue, that number will rise, but it's just great to see it. This is the 7th greatest breakout since 1990, at least if you look at stocks making new highs.
The show goes on, but when I first looked at this data, at first I was a little bit concerned because I was like, why are there only 22 stocks at all-time highs with this breakout? But when you look at all the other ones in the past, sometimes you see as many as 97 stocks at all-time highs, or 82 stocks, or, just much more than we have now. But like you said, there are, quite a few stocks, 83 to be exact, that are very close to all-time highs. So what it really seems like is, we're just waiting for this euphoria to continue, and there will just be a a horde of other stocks to join this all-time high breakout. So that's pretty cool. And speaking of all-time highs, let's check out Robinhood, because this stock is breaking records every single day. It crushed it today as it popped up by 6%, and it has been one of the most explosive stocks, I would say, all year long. When we saw that initial sell-off back in April, Robinhood fell down to $30 per share. Now it's at $100, and it seems like this trend is just accelerating more and more. Basically, there's a lot of optimism here in multiple different ways. Number one, they had an event earlier this week where they're tokenizing their platform, I guess you can say, and really opening up in multiple different ways to open up investors' ability to invest in private companies like SpaceX and OpenAI, as well as offering EU customers the ability to buy more US stocks. And on top of that, there is some speculation that Robinhood might even get added to the S&P 500 sometime soon as well.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool. They actually were recently snubbed from the S&P 500 on June 9th. They did not get added in like people had thought that they would. But Mike, whenever I start to just go through all of the Robinhood headlines today, there is so much positivity stemming from Robinhood. I feel like it's become one of the most popular stocks in the entire market. We can see on CNBC here, they're definitely loving it. Even though it got snubbed from the S&P, there still gets high praises out there from a ton of people. And it makes sense. They're doing a lot of innovations, like you said, with tokenizing and different things like that. Those stock tokens are definitely going to be pretty big, especially for the EU market whenever they do initially come out. Looking at Robinhood stock a little bit closer today, it said that it topped 100 there on the CNBC headline. It topped 100 for a little bit and then came down. There was almost a perfect double top around $100.85. If we could see a good breakout past this tomorrow, that would show that we're getting back above 100, which is huge, but then also past that double top. So I think that definitely has to be on the radar tomorrow if you are a scalper out there. And I thought that it was a little bit negative to see Robinhood close under this key resistance as well, around 98.50. It's not the worst close ever given how much they rose, but it's definitely something I'll be watching for.
Definitely. And if we do see that breakout, when you have a stock like Robinhood that is running with this much intense momentum, it's just important to make sure when the trend turns that you get out quickly. Just don't get caught holding the bag. But either way, the stock is certainly in play, and it'll probably continue to be in play at least throughout the next week or so. One other stock I did want to mention to go alongside this one is Bull. This is Webull. We'll call it Robinhood's little brother. And it actually had a pretty good day today as it popped up by 11.5%. So, when you have Robinhood moving as much as it is, it definitely helps the whole industry. And we have been seeing crypto do pretty good as well, just in general, which has also helped lift Webull higher. But either way, keep it close on watch.
Yeah, that is a huge move with Bull here. And, going from their recent low to their high today, they're up 40%, which is nice. And, looking at Robinhood, if we just go back to, we'll just say the beginning of 2025, they've had such a good year so far, pretty much rising at the high of day today, 164%. So they are definitely on quite the run this year, and hopefully they can keep getting above $100. But Mike, one stock that had a lot of positivity today, and it kind of surprised me, was Tesla. Tesla's delivery numbers came out and they really were not the best. So Tesla's deliveries ended up dropping. This was the second straight quarterly decline. Their deliveries came in at 384,000, which was pretty nice. That's a pretty good increase, we would say, from Q1, but nonetheless, it was a 14% decline year over year. And whenever you hear a 14% decline year over year in deliveries, it's definitely not the best thing to hear. But Tesla's stock really did not care, and it ended up rising from this. And a big reason that it ended up rising is because a lot of people have been very fearful with Tesla lately. There's been a lot of fear with Trump and Elon, of course. Their feud's been kind of picking up. And then at the same time, Tesla's deliveries have been having a lot of woes, whether it's because of Elon's political stuff or people just aren't as into electric cars as they were a few years ago. Tesla's deliveries have been falling a little bit. Now, the reason why they're moving up, in my opinion, is because the deliveries did not fall as much as people thought, right? This actually could have been a much worse report where we did not see, we'll say, let's just say we just saw a slight miss from expectations here, where I think that traders were definitely more fearful that it would miss by a lot more.
Yeah, in the simplistic sense, everyone was expecting this data to come in really bad, and it didn't come in really bad. So it was just better than everyone feared. And in a trading sense, really how the market interprets this data is all that matters. So like looking at Tesla stock, it's up, we'll call it 5% on the day. It is one of the heaviest components of the S&P 500, which just helps, add more bullishness to the market overall. There was a lot of attention with this Deliveries report, and if Tesla can continue to run, maybe putting pressure to like that 320 or 323 level tomorrow, it can be like a potential like continuation style play given, the recent event and momentum, and plus the market's at all-time highs as well, just making it easier for stocks in general to rise, but especially big tech stocks. So either way, it's definitely worth watching, and we definitely had to cover it given today's delivery data.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the more popular stocks out there, of course. And whether or not you love Elon or you hate him, it's one of the better stocks to trade, I would say, as well. The options on it are usually pretty liquid. And of course, there can be a lot of intraday potential. As we saw today, a lot of people were having some pretty good profits with Tesla. I would say, Mike, like you said, that 322 high of day today will definitely be the main level that I keep on the radar as we start to head into tomorrow. And Mike, kind of speaking about tomorrow a little bit, there are some big events coming up on the radar. And one of the biggest ones is the jobs numbers. We can see here the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate are set to come out 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow. So that's going to be a pretty big event. Definitely be ready 1 hour before the market opens. We can see the consensus and the forecast here on the right side of your screen. The unemployment rate is set to come in around 4.3%. So that's honestly a little bit higher than the last reading. As long as it comes in right there or a little bit less, I think the market will take that in a good way. And then 30 minutes after the market opens, we actually have the ISM Services PMI set to come out as well. So tomorrow is actually quite the action-packed day, and it's a short day nonetheless too, which even throws a little bit more of a wrench into things.
Yeah, exactly. So the market closes at 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow because of Independence Day, and it's going to be fully closed on Friday, so there's going to be no video tomorrow. But I will say tomorrow is going to be the biggest event of the week with this jobs data because everyone is looking at the Federal Reserve right now, trying to see what they are going to do with the path of rate cuts going forward. And the data that's going to get revealed tomorrow is going to show us the strength of the U.S. jobs market, and it's going to give us, like you said, Tom, an updated unemployment rate. So, like, for example, if we see this non-farm payrolls data come in below, especially 100,000, that would hurt quite a bit. And like if we see that unemployment rate tick up to like 4.4% or 4.5%, that would be a rough sign. So either way, pay attention 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow. This can definitely intensify the trend in a good way and push us past new all-time highs again, or it can definitely just like shift the sentiment going on. But either way, we should see an increase in volatility, and that should be expected right around market open tomorrow. So definitely pay attention to that. And then the earnings week is clear tomorrow. There are no earnings reports. But Tom, we did have some pretty big news today with this trade deal with Vietnam. So what is going on here?
Yeah, Trump actually announced a Vietnam trade deal today, and there was a lot of stocks moving from this, so definitely stick with me here. But what's going on is that there's going to be a 20% U.S. tariff on Vietnamese goods, as well as a 40% trans-shipping tariff. Now, the interesting thing is that Trump actually says that with Vietnam, there's going to be no tariffs on U.S. Goods sent to there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Nonetheless, he did strike a deal today, and he ended up coming out and announcing this. And I know that Trump and his team have been saying that they were going to get some of these trade deals done in the short term. And as we know, Mike, there's the July 9th deadline that Trump has where he wants to get a lot of these deals done. So hopefully we see more deals start to hit. At least it was good to see things start to kick off on the right foot.
Yeah, and Trump didn't seem too eager to extend this reciprocal tariff pause deadline either. So next week definitely should be exciting on that front. But looking closer off stocks that are actually moving on this news, Nike is the main one. So they have like a 44% exposure to Vietnam. Their stock popped up 4% today on this news, and it has been running pretty strongly in general, especially after it reported earnings a few trading days ago. Looking at the stock right now, now. Of course, there's news driving this move. I would say the price action was pretty good as well. Tom, looking at the chart for this one, are there any key levels overhead to pay attention to?
With Nike, I love the way that it's running up, and there are some pretty key levels here. I really like this wick that's extending around $80 to $82. I think that this little $2 range will end up being very important. There's been a lot of touches right off of $80 exactly, and that's a huge psychological whole dollar level as well. Nike does have a lot of momentum though, so I don't want people to necessarily marry the overall setup, as they could shift in the short term a little bit. I do love the uptrend though, and we'll be watching for $80 to potentially touch. If we zoom in on a 5-minute chart today, a lot of the consolidation at the end slowed down around 76.85, and that would be a pretty good level to break out above tomorrow. But looking at it in after hours, Mike, there's a lot of strength. It might even break it in pre-market or here tonight.
And then another cool thing too, if we go back to that daily chart, we can actually see that there's a massive big money trader on this one. On May 12th, we called out the 65 strike call option where the trader put $5 million into it, and they're up over 100% on this play, and they're still holding. And these options have some time to them, so I wouldn't even be surprised to see this stock continue to move higher over the next few weeks and months. But either way, we will see. Keep it close on watch. But there are a handful of other stocks moving off this news as well, like Lululemon and Crocs, ticker symbol CROX. But honestly, these stocks aren't moving as much, but we figured we'd mention them just in case. And stay tuned for the big money today too, because it is definitely tied to this and it's definitely moving. But besides that, Tom, looking closer at SPY, which is everyone's favorite ticker symbol, especially as it's at all-time highs, what are the key levels that you're seeing for tomorrow? And look at that, we are at new all-time highs yet again.
Let's go. That is awesome. Yeah, 620 came into play today. I know that we've been looking at that one over the past few trading days as a good level once we saw that all-time high break that was previously at 619.22. I guess right now in after hours, the all-time high is technically 620.76, which is a pretty high number. If we can get above 621 tomorrow morning, I'm definitely targeting 622 overhead. I think the 622 could be a really good area where we start to see a bit more of a slowdown. Now, I will say we're in uncharted territory, so it's hard to, find any truly established levels here, but we like to look at a lot of the whole dollar and psychological levels. And I will say if 622 starts to break and there's a lot of good momentum, 624 and 625 will be a huge range that I think a lot of traders will love to target. Generally, every $5 is generally a pretty good psychological level. So that's why I mentioned 625 there. But I love to see this uptrend continuing, Mike. For tomorrow, there was a good resistance that was broken at that previous all-time high around 619. As long as we can hold above that, I think it'll show some pretty good bullish price action. I think that the biggest thing tomorrow is not to marry the setup. If we see SPY start to reject a little bit and pull back, that would be totally fine for tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's also going to be a short day, so keep in mind that there might be a little less volatility than normal.
Another thing to pay attention to as well is that the S&P 500's market breadth right now is near the worst levels that it has ever been at. So as we can see from this data here, that means we are essentially seeing a handful of stocks really carry the market, where there are other stocks that are, just struggling. So what I think this really goes to show is really pay attention to the stocks that matter the most, and that is, big tech stocks like Nvidia, you could say Apple, Google, Tesla. Stocks like that have the biggest, heaviest weighting and impact on the market. So, a lot of times what these stocks are doing directly influences what everything else is doing.
It's kind of funny, looking at the heat map today, it looks pretty red, but there's those big splotches of green, and I think that that's what really held up the SPY today for sure. Nvidia, Apple, Tesla, Google, maybe even ZOM down there. Some of these oil stocks are pretty large as well, but definitely keep your eyes on those sectors. And just looking at those just a little bit more, Mike, I know we talked a lot about Tesla already and Nvidia and a lot of others, but if we do see these continuations, that's really what will fuel that SPY. So keep your eyes on Nvidia tomorrow for a potential triple top breakout. Same thing with Tesla.
Sounds good. All right, well, jumping into some setups and predictions, a stock that is close on watch is SLV, and it is to the upside. This ticker did pretty well today as it popped up by 1.5%, and we have been seeing silver prices continue to rise throughout the year, and we're seeing a lot of price acceptance right around this $33 area, and it is ticking higher a little bit, and it can certainly do well if the jobs report bombs tomorrow, as more investors just like resort to like safe haven style assets. I saw gold was doing pretty good as well, and we're just seeing like a nice broad uptrend out of precious metals in general, which certainly helps. Either way, SLV is definitely on my bullish radar, and again, that jobs report can definitely add more fuel to the fire in the worst case scenario where SLV tanks and it's just no play.
Yeah, SLV has been really hot here this year, and I've been pretty surprised to see it breaking out as much as it has. I know it was actually kind of lagging behind gold for a while, but now it's looking very good. And I know, Mike, we'd been targeting $32 forever. It finally got there and is well above now. So pretty awesome price action. With my first setup, I'm looking at Apple to the upside for a possible continuation play. I love the way that Apple's setting up here, and my main concern is that they're running into a really large resistance. But at the same time, it's already rejected off this resistance 3 other times in 2025 in general. So I will be watching for this resistance to potentially break, and there's a lot of sellers stacked up at this 215 level. We can see on the Bookmap here, pulling out the X-ray vision, 204,000 shares are at 215. So definitely watch that over the next few trading days. If we do see this nice bull run continue, that's where I think a lot of the good bullish PA with Apple will start to come back. And, looking at Apple in general, they have been down in the dumps lately. There has also been speculation that there could be a trade deal with India eventually, and that could potentially help Apple as they do a lot of business there. And, as we saw with Nike today, some of these companies with exposure to deals can do pretty well sometimes.
Definitely. And Apple's been stuck down in the dumps throughout this year, while a lot of other big tech stocks are flying past their all-time highs. So it should be interesting, and it's great to see this already good price action. I will keep a close eye on that 215 level, like you mentioned. And another stock that is close on watch is Netflix, and it is actually to the downside. This is more so if we do see a pullback tomorrow, and their options move quite a bit when this stock does pull back. I was actually looking at the 1280 strike put options that expired this week, and yesterday they went from like $100 to $1,100 in like 2 hours off of that sell-off. So that was pretty crazy, but either way, Netflix is on the radar for a potential downtrend, but I would want to see the stock actually like show weakness. Like, for example, if the stock is just down by 0.2%, then that's not weakness, that's just chop. If we see like a real breakout past like 1275 and ideally past 1270 in like a quick decisive way, there definitely is like breakdown potential here. It's definitely on watch, but again, we want to see real selling come into play.
Yeah, and that was some real selling on Tuesday. If we start to see something like that, there could be some really good opportunities here. I think it's definitely worth it to keep Netflix on the radar here in the short term. Now, with my next setup, guys, we got to keep in mind that this one's a little bit risky. There's high risk, high reward, but we're looking at Tilray. It's been a little while. Tilray has been dying over the past few months. There has been some opportunities as they try to pop up every now and again, but I've noticed that lately they've been trying to form a little base down around the 40-cent mark. It's not direct like where we just see a ton of 40-cent bounces, but there has been quite a bit, and we are seeing a good rip today with this 15% move. I didn't really see too much news in the marijuana sector, and even like the US cannabis ETF MSOS didn't really do that good, only up 0.83%. But if we start to see Tilray continue with the momentum that it did today, there can definitely be some good short-term potential, and I love that it's like right at the 50-cent mark. This will really allow us to have a solid level to break above, and it also allows you to keep risk a little bit tight, as in like, let's say that we start to really rip above 50, you throw a little trailing stop on there, and that way, if it starts to fall back underneath 50, you generally have your risk sorted out. But I like the Tilray setup, and it is starting to move, but I will say it's high risk, high reward. Mike, whenever you used to say, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, I see why you said it now.
Yeah, good stuff with Tilray. We we shall see. And besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have a D-Wave Quantum, ticker symbol QBTS, to the upside.
QBTS was on fire. If they can break out above $16.10, keep watching them up.
All right, with the next one, we have Energy Fuels, ticker symbol UUUU, also to the upside.
Amazing by them as well, up 8.87%. If they can break the $6.40 level just above the high of day, then watch for a continuation.
And then with the last one, we have CVS, ticker symbol CVS, to the downside.
That one was kind of funny. But if they end up falling under $66.50, then keep watching them down. They were down 4.28% today. Not the best PA, at least in the short term.
All right, so keep a close eye on these three stocks for potential continuations tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. But besides that, we are all clear for today's $560,000 big money trade. And we are looking at Steve Madden, ticker symbol SHOO. They actually had a pretty solid day today off of this Vietnam news, especially. Basically, the trader here bought the 25 strike call options that expire on September 19th of 2025. Again, this is a $560,000 trade. The stock popped up just under 3.5% today. It has been selling off in a broader sense, and this deal with Vietnam is definitely good because it helps companies like Steve Madden, as we saw Nike get a pretty big bid as well. I really like how these call options are already in the money, considering they are at the 25 strike and the stock is at $26, and there's a lot of time to them. So the trader here is definitely erring on the side of a higher win rate. The stock is also making higher lows over the past few months as well, and it definitely does have some room to tick higher. I do see some resistance closer to like that $27 area. That level definitely stood out to me, with like secondary levels around like $27.50, $28.50, and $30.
Yeah, I definitely like 27 a lot in the short term as well. If we start to see a really good rip past that, this options play will do fantastic. I thought that this was an extremely interesting big money play. You know, shout out to the Wolf of Wall Street for this one. I don't think I would ever know what Steve Madden's shoes were if it wasn't for them. But nonetheless, if it does get this breakout here at 27, I honestly think that there's a lot of room on this one, Mike. You know, I know that there's a lot of people that I might try to target a little bit too high here, like let's say with $40, but this overall range where it moved last time shows it's almost like no man's land. You know, whenever the stock gets in here, it likes to move. And if it starts to get up into this range, I could see it potentially, like, it's not technically filling the gap, but getting back to the top here. So I think that, you know, targeting something like 34, 35, 36 wouldn't really be that terrible considering how much this one moves. And, you know, it fell just by that much within just a couple weeks at the beginning of March.
Yeah, and the options have time to them, so we shall see. But if you guys are new to the channel, definitely make sure to subscribe so you can see big money trades just like this one every single day, as well as the most important news, information, earnings, economic events, and basically everything you need to know about the stock market every single day. When you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. But before we do anything else, we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Mark and Heather in the StockedUp trading floor, who had a great post today. Huge shout out to you guys. Thank you all so much for the very kind words in the Discord. It is great to see posts like this, and these gains are awesome. So huge shout out to you guys. Keep up the great work going forward. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely make sure to check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. Our bots hit it out of the park today. We can see SurgeBot had some bombers. Some Mara call options popped up by 552%, UNH put options 365%, RGTI call options 303%, TSM call options 293%, and I'm not even going to read the rest. Of course, there were some duds in there as well, and I would say the pullbacks were maybe even, honestly, they were neck and neck. We had some UNH put options that popped up by 557%, NKE call options 133%, and so on. We have a live event today as well. If you join the trading floor, you get full access to that. The daily big money plays. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long and access basically everything you could need. So if you want in, make sure to use coupon code BIGMONEY to save. The link for that will be in the description and the comments down below. But either way, we only have one more trading day left of the week. Let's make it count. Don't forget about the jobs data for tomorrow and the coupon in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.